Hi, I'm Doug McKenzie, and on this week's Regtech Show, we're teaming up with Nuix, a company that helps financial institutions make sense of all their unstructured data. We'll also be getting insights from Nationwide and Société Générale about what they're doing with data and security in the age of regulation. Firstly, we sat down with Stuart Clarke, Nuix's CTO and Global Head of Security, to get his take on the challenges facing banks in the digital age.
The financial services industry's got challenges across the board. From a technology point of view, in particular, the rise of cryptocurrencies and what that can offer the sector, and the challenges that can offer the sector as well. Cybersecurity, massive issue, the rise of DDoS attacks, ransomware, social engineering. These are going to continue to be a big issue. The one thing that is for sure, we're going to generate more data across more different types of systems. So we traditionally live in a world where unstructured data dominates. I think 80 to 90% of the world's data is unstructured data. But these new devices are just going to add to that. We're going to have more structured repositories, we're going to have more unstructured repositories. And if we don't get on top of that now, it's going to present a real big challenge later on. Unstructured data is generally, by definition, it doesn't have a schema, so it's got no structure at all. What it generally is very text heavy, so emails, documents, SMS, social media, they're all different types of unstructured data. Contained within that text is a huge amount of PII generally. There could be dates, there could be credit card numbers, there could be date of birth, there could be names, and that's a huge challenge to be able to identify the PII and basically contain it. So from the financial services perspective, these increasing number of devices represent a real challenge unless they really adjust their strategy, I think. We can't continue to store more data. That's traditionally been the approach. Storage is cheap, let's store more data and not worry about what we're actually storing. And I think now the onus is on, well, we need to know what we're storing. GDPR says we need to know. And we need to get a good hold on what's in our data lakes. And there's a real opportunity really to not just comply with GDPR, but actually get more value out of our data lakes as well and go beyond just the bare minimum and actually make it a bit of a competitive edge as well. So I think as we move forward, that there is certainly opportunity for the financial sector to get a real good hold on these new data repositories, but they do need to start from the ground up.
Graham Edwards from Nationwide expanded on why data security is becoming more important for consumers in 2018.
So what are some of the issues around data security? I mean, why is this still a thing? Is it people leaving their account details in a bin for anyone to pick up, or is it much more on the virtual side?
It's everything. So we treat data security as being all-encompassing. We have a whole range of threat actors that concern us, all the way from the little spotty little hacker in his bedroom, all the way through to state-sponsored espionage. All these things are an issue. But we actually phrase security as being the prevention of both deliberate and accidental events. It's not just someone trying to break in and do it. So the accidental stuff is important, and we try and cover that by processes and codifying those into our systems to make it difficult for people to make mistakes, all the way through to the protection we put in to try and stop people doing things deliberately. So it's something and everything. Data security is pervasive. There's nothing we do that doesn't use data. Money is just data. There is very little cash lying around anymore. So if someone wants to mess with data on the deliberate side, they'll be messing with data. If it's accidental, they can do a lot of damage by just doing something wrong.
Are there any issues with scale? Because as a consumer, I've got to remember so much information, and I probably generate petabytes of information. Is there an issue at the moment with scale in 2018 compared to, say, 2012?
Well, the scale, I mean, the amount of data just that the world generates is just ridiculous. In the context of a financial institution, I'm worrying about the data that we have to deal with. It grows quite dramatically from what it would have been probably 5 years ago. But it's manageable. The cost of storage has also dropped correspondingly, so we can store that. The issues that have come about, which are raised in GDPR, for instance, is not keeping data more than you need it to. So you only keep it where necessary and for appropriate purposes. And so actually that weeding down of the data is required, and quite a difficult thing to do, to keep on top of it, to make sure that it's done appropriately.
With that in mind, for example, my Twitter information is public data. Would you guys at Nationwide be concerned around the sort of data security around you holding that information, or because it's public, is that something that, from your perspective, is not a higher priority as, say, my sort code and account number?
So I'm not concerned with what you do with your Twitter account per se. What does concern me, though, just wearing my security hat as a whole, is the fact that people inappropriately put things up there which would allow someone that had malfeasance in mind to actually take advantage of the things that you've put on your social media. Like they can pick up your name, your address, they can pick up that you're going to be out of town, for instance, you're going on holiday, all these things which allow them to sort of find their way into identity theft, where they can perhaps take over. Then it starts to become an issue for us, because your identity is being falsely used to attempt to manipulate your finances. And that is our issue, and that's when we get concerned. So we are worried about what people put on social media, but it's, you know, it's people's choice and people's rights. We try and educate them, and like most financial institutions, you'll find good advice on all of our websites.
Next, we sent Léa Jakobiak to speak with Société Générale to find out what the banks will be doing with the recent slew of regulations.
Big topic at the moment is data, how to use it in an effective way, and also in order to protect the customer. What are your thoughts on that, in particular when it comes to MiFID and PSD2?
Obviously, data management is going to be one of the core areas of development. Banks have naturally a lot of data, and we have to do two things. On the one hand, to sometimes better use these data, to provide a more personalized and legitimate, adapted, appropriate service to the clients, while at the same time, with the new European regulation, with GDPR, we have also to protect these data. And we can all see in this world, with the risk of cyber attacks, that there is a risk that data are disseminated outside. And so we have to work on the two dimensions, which means, of course, investments for banks and a new way of thinking. But again, banks are well positioned, I think, to take the opportunity of that, to be a trusted partner and to remain a trusted partner for their clients.
We can all agree that GDPR is a serious issue. However, I wanted to see if there was a company that had a quick fix in mind.
Is there a magic bullet for GDPR? Can I have some AI bots go through all of my data and deal with subject access requests? Is there a shortcut for compliance?
Definitely not. So there is no magic bullet for GDPR. If people were fully compliant with the Data Protection Act, then they would have to do a certain amount of work to get them to GDPR. Quite a lot of work for many people, but even that, there's no magic bullet. It's a lot of hard work to actually make sure you fully understand how you're using your data, how personal information is being used, where it's stored, how it's protected. All these things have to be worked through. And I think that's the same for everybody. It's a big piece of work. You mentioned SARS. SARS is a classic case where you would look at and you'd assume that you could gather all the data using a piece of artificial intelligence, and that would be great. Well, we can automate the gathering of data. We know where the data is, and that's just a simple search routine that brings it in. But subject access requests actually have a lot of interesting side effects. So when I ask for somebody's data, it will often come back with someone else's data associated with it. So if we had a husband and wife, for instance, it is not our duty to pass to a husband details of his wife. So that's their personal information. But there are many other cases, so emails, if someone was requesting details of the emails we held about them and notes about them, there could well be other people's data in that information. I don't know any AI yet that's good enough to do that. So a major part of our SAR work is that someone actually has to eyeball all the content we're going to send back and make sure it's been redacted and we've taken out anything that is irrelevant, that doesn't apply to that person, or more importantly, applies to a third party that they have no right to see their personal information.
You've got to go down to basics, really. You've got to go back to the very basics of knowing who you are as an organization and what data you hold inside of your organization as well. So again, there's a convergence of different industries now. We've got cybersecurity and information governance blending together and converging together because they very much complement each other. What information governance allows and encourages is for you to really understand what is in your data and what is in your organization. And there's 4 key principles of information governance which I think are incredibly relevant to moving towards being GDPR compliant. The first phase is knowing your data. So doing a discovery exercise, understanding exactly what data is inside of your organization. And then we go through kind of a cleanup exercise where we remove, it's called rot data, residual, obsolete, trivial data, get rid of that stuff, and then we're left with just what's important to the business. The second phase it's called herding. And what we do during herding is we group things together based on their sensitivity, based on their type. We put the important things together. The third phase, then we put the appropriate security in place. So we'll secure our PII data, and we'll invest a lot of money in securing that data. The stuff that's not quite as important, we don't have to invest as much money in securing it potentially. It makes our security spends a lot more relevant to actually our organization as well. So it puts a lot more control around our security spends. And then the final piece of that equation is auditing. You've done all that good work. You don't want to lose track of that. So you audit regularly to make sure that the security is still in place. The people who have access to that data are relevant, that you don't let people who are not allowed access to that material, for example. So you keep those controls in place. Once you've been through those 4 steps, you're in a position then to start moving towards becoming GDPR compliant.
Graham Edwards from Nationwide went on to explain what some of the issues are for the incumbents when keeping up with the pace of change in innovation.
So data security is constantly changing. So the threats against us are evolving continuously. They get tougher and tougher. I've been doing security now for very many years, and every few years you have to reinvent your whole self to look at the new threats that are out there. So the efforts that we put in now is one of continually playing catch up with what the threats are that are out there, but actually we put much more emphasis now onto being proactive. So we use intelligence sources to work out what's coming up so that we can proactively put stuff in place before it actually comes to fruition. Playing catch up is a very dangerous game. It's asymmetric warfare we're engaged in here. The bad guys can spend a lot of money and we can have fixed budgets to contain that, and therefore if we just wait for something to happen, we're already too late. So we have to be on the front foot. Having said that, we spend a lot of time and money making sure that all the basics are right, because if the basic security is in place, almost everything you see that ever goes wrong is actually not something exciting and new and sexy. It's actually an old flaw that someone failed to patch their system. TalkTalk's a classic. I mean, the flaw was older than the hacker that broke in. It's quite ridiculous. It's something that should have been patched years ago, and they just haven't done it.
With that in mind, Stuart dissected the Nuix engine that helps keep the incumbents ahead of the game.
It's an incredibly powerful processing capability with unstructured data repositories and structured data repositories. So the Nuix engine is able to process huge volumes of those different data repositories at incredibly high speeds. And when we consider what GDPR actually requires, it generally requires 3 things. GDPR needs you to discover what's in your data sets. And that is what the engine does very, very well. So the Nuix engine gives you the ability to trawl through huge volumes of data and figure out exactly what you've got. Where your PII is, where your PCI data is, where your payment card data is, where all of the key information is inside of your organization. That's what the engine enables. Once you've undertaken that discovery exercise, powered by the Nuix engine, you then have the ability to do some analysis and understand exactly what you're dealing with. So without that critical first step, you really can't move on to that next phase. So the engine lays bare all of that key information, all of the personally identifiable data, which then gives you data to work with to do some analysis and to understand exactly what you've got from a GDPR perspective. And then subsequently, the final piece is you actually act on the information you've been given, or the information that you're seeing. And again, that is a key point, because without knowing where your data repositories are and what's in your data repositories, you can't act in the appropriate way. So you can't determine where you need to apply encryption, or where you need to delete data, or where you maybe need to change access controls, for example. So the engine really is the critical point at the beginning. Do your discovery right, and the rest of it follows on, and it becomes very efficient and very accurate and very robust.
With that in mind, let's just take rules and regulation off the table. Why is it still a good idea, of course, to work with systems like yours in order to really sort of make yourself more robust, i.e., how do you really sort of help with the spirit that the regulation has been made in?
The engine just gives you, the Nuix engine, sorry, gives you a great insight into your data, but aside from regulation, it actually offers you the opportunity to get a whole huge amount of value out of a data set as well. So it can give you a competitive advantage. It gives you insight into, for example, from a security point of view, what are the key behaviors of a good individual versus a bad individual? So starting to understand what those behaviors are. This becomes key when there's a big drive towards artificial intelligence now and cognitive analysis. Those things can't exist and can't be successful without actually knowing what's going on inside of a data set. Those pieces of technology, cognitive analysis, behavior analysis, are absolutely key in the future in helping prevent fraud, in helping protect customers from compromises and from breaches. But the engine really, again, informs them. So it's not only part of a regulatory solution, but it's also part of actually building a more robust and a more secure and a more in-depth means of being able to protect your customers, if you like, because it will inform the technologies that you're trying to roll out to put protections in place. So it has a huge space of giving that competitive advantage.
So what are some of the other advantages of being able to understand that data?
Probably quite a key thing is understanding what your customers are doing, and it becomes a very powerful business intelligence tool as well. What are the key trends? What are the key themes that I'm seeing in my data? That then allows you to do a much better job at catering for your customers. And at the end of the day, the customer is the most important thing to an organization. So if they can cater a service and tailor a service to a key demographic or a key customer, then that's a really robust way of, again, sustaining a competitive advantage. So the engine can give you capabilities in that space as well.
With GDPR mere days away, we got the final lowdown on what our interviewees were doing to innovate.
What we have announced, again, a major ambition, which is to fully digitalize in the next 3 years all our processes in our traditional networks. That's one thing. Second, further grow Boursorama, leading online banking in France, 1.3 million clients. In 2020, we aim to have more than 2 million clients. So you can see we are at the forefront of technology. Myself, I'm very much involved. I am learning Python coding, and I spend a lot of time meeting with Fintech.
So our real focus is actually many of the soft skills that need to be put in place. GDPR is a cultural thing, actually. We need to get everybody to understand what personal information is and how it should be treated. And that needs to be done universally. People understand that pretty well at the moment, but it needs to become ubiquitous.
Humans cannot keep up with the levels of growth in data sets, so they're going to start relying on cognitive algorithms, they're going to start relying on machine learning. But what's got to happen first is those algorithms can only work if you understand exactly what you're dealing with. So things like the Nuix engine that have that great insight into unstructured data sources, they become an incredibly important part when you start talking about applying machine learning algorithms to prevent fraud, for example. All at the heart of what we've built is the Nuix engine, absolutely, but that has given us a great capability in the analytics space, given us great insight into huge volumes of data, vastly different data repositories, whether it be mobile devices, whether it be document management systems, whether it be cloud data, emails, documents. Because we've got insight into all of those different data repositories, our analytics platform, Nuix Insight Analytics and Intelligence, has a huge amount of capability. And it's being used now in the financial space, it's being used for counter-terrorism activities, it's being used for dealing with insider threats and espionage cases, and the list goes on. We've built a platform that can extend to many different use cases and many different environments.
So, good luck to everyone when GDPR finally comes out on the 25th of May. Some have called it an extinction level event. We're yet to see. Tune in to next month's Regtech Show when we'll be discussing the regulation immediately following its release.